Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Regulars. It is me, the Popcorn. And another year of both cinematic masterpieces and disaster pieces have come and gone. And as we look forward to the new films on the horizon, Isaac and I are putting our heads together and looking back at the top 10 best and the top 10 worst movies we've seen in theaters in 2023. Now, before we get into this, just for clarification, the rules of the rankings are as follows. First of all, they must be seen by us within 2023. So, films technically released at the tail end of 2022, but we didn't get to see them until January of 2023, still count. As well as Isaac and I both have to be present, so any movie that we saw on our own time or with separate people can only receive an honorable mention. This will only cover new films, so anniversary, remastered, retro showings, or repeat showings don't count. And will only be limited to the movies that we saw in theaters. So there are several others. This will only be limited to movies that we went and saw in theaters. So there are several others that fell out of our interest range or that we absolutely knew were going to be terrible from the start. So this is not a complete list of every movie released this year, just the ones that we have seen. Now, with all that squared away, let's begin our look at all right. So coming in at my number 10 is John Wick 4. I thought that this entry into the John Wick franchise, not only the franchise as a whole being a very good action series, but also pretty much being directly sequential, as like 1 through 4 takes place within maybe a handful of months, and it's all continuous from 1 to 4. I believe that this one's squared away a really fitting ending. Maybe seen as disappointing for some, but I thought it was a nice ending to the series. I think that the action in this one is just as exciting and just as enjoyable as all the other ones were. I think that the cinematography in some scenes was very impressive and very interesting at the new angles that they were trying to do things with. I think that all the new characters that were introduced in this entry were super interesting and they had their own little things going on, and I thought that was really cool. But overall, I thought that this one was just like a super good time. I think the runtime for this one was about 3 hours, which, I mean, you definitely feel, but I personally was not bored at all during it. All right. At number 9, we have The Whale. Over here at the Cinema Regulars channel, we are super huge fans of our boy Brendan Fraser, and he is back after his long hiatus from acting, and he is back and welcome. Now, I'm sure that Isaac would have plenty more to say about The Whale, but I felt that the character acting, which the plot of the movie is entirely character driven and set in a single setting, and I personally love those kinds of movies because it's interesting what they will go to do with that, because they're confined to a single place. So I wonder what they're going to do with that, because how are they going to elevate that if they're stuck in a single room? And all the raw emotion and acting that comes out from this film is phenomenal, and he definitely deserves any awards that will be coming to him from this movie. Clocking in at my number 8 pick is The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Now, call me a salty sailor, but I have an affinity for pirate movies. Now, technically, they're not pirates because they are legal tradesmen carrying a shipment from one place to another, but you know what I mean. They're all stuck on a creaky wooden boat, and that is the vibe. Dracula in this movie is better than ever. I'm always interested to see what they do with reimaginings of classic creatures like this, and I think this interpretation of Dracula is definitely one of the better ones. I think that this movie in particular has the best instance of a man burning to death, at least that I've ever seen. And the thing that tops it all off for me is that this whole movie was put together based off of a single chapter in the Bram Stoker's Dracula book. So if they can do this with a single chapter, it just leaves me to wonder what they're going to do with the rest of the book, if they could. Number 7, we have Oppenheimer. Now, I'm not going to hide this fact. Yes, Isaac and I did go to see this just for the Barbenheimer meme, but I was actually thoroughly surprised and pleased with the compelling character study in this movie. I knew the only thing I really knew about Oppenheimer was anything that I picked up from the Oppenheimer versus Thanos epic rap battle that, yeah, everyone saw that. But this really brings you more onto the factual side of what he was doing. And I gotta say, I count myself extremely lucky to have seen this in the ultra screen because the scene with the bomb test, the entire theater shook and you felt every little bit of that. And while yes, a lot of it is just people talking and people interacting with each other and not especially interesting scenarios, but I feel that the fully packed cast of competent actors, not like they just pulled whoever's hot at the moment. They've actually filled this movie with really good names that are very good at acting. And also, I will never unhear or unsee the moment of Josh Peck announcing that the detonator is charged. So thank you for that, Oppenheimer. Number 6, we have Babylon. Now, as I said in the beginning, this is one of the movies that was actually released at the uh, closing of December in 2022, but Isaac and I didn't get around to it until January the next year, this year. And my God, I'm glad that I finally have a moment to talk about this movie because this movie centers around the shift in cinema that was made when they discovered a way to add sound. Once sound was added to movies, they were changed forever. This is a good look at what old cinema used to be like, what movies were like way back in the black and white days, back in the, silent film days, and the social settings of the filmmakers and actors that they were going through, all the drugs and the partying and the drinking and driving and all that, and this lavish lifestyle that they were living. It was, well, it's probably not too much different as it is from today, but but no, this film was packed with full of passionate acting, and there were certain scenes in there that I found myself heavily relating to on personal experiences. That probably doesn't make sense out of context, but anyways, this is just a fantastic movie about movies and how movies as a whole will continuously change, and as they change, they're changed forever. Number 5, we have Talk to Me. Now, I will be the first to admit that I probably have this up way too high on my rankings, but the first experience just seeing it was just so gripping that I left the theater just completely emotionally shocked. Um, the practical effects in this movie were outstanding, and again, on this channel, we love us some practical effects because they are way more impressive than any amount of CGI. Because you actually have to physically build the thing, you have to apply the makeup, you have to make sure that the effects work as they work physically instead of just sitting at a computer making sure that they all click when you need to click them. Um, Not to say that there weren't CGI, but they did a lot of things practically, and it looked phenomenal and outstanding. Um, there were multiple scenes that shook me through this movie, made me feel like very like I didn't think that they were going to take something that far, and there were definitely the uh, disgusting scenes that made me just squirm and shudder and not want to be here anymore. But it was worth it the whole while run, and I believe that the twist ending is definitely one of the and I believe that the twist ending was probably the best way possible that you could have ended this movie. Clocking in at number 4, we have Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Once again, this was released in December, but we didn't get to see it till January. I believe we actually saw it the same day as The Whale and Babylon, which is interesting that they all ended up this high still. But Puss in Boots' Last Wish is really breathing new life into the DreamWorks company with the amazing quality and style of the animation. And a lot of people have been comparing it to Spider-Verse with the slower frame rate, but I feel that it blended together very well and left it with more of like a painting vibe to the animation style, which I enjoyed very well. Every single character in this movie was handled really well. I know everyone loves the maliciously evil John Mulaney, but for me it was the wolf. The wolf was just terrifying, and his presence was just demanding. They handled that character exceptionally well. All around, I feel that this one is just like a super enjoyable film and absolutely worth watching, and definitely worth watching again and again. Number 3, we have Across the Spider-Verse. Now, it's no secret that me, my brother, and Isaac are all super huge Spider-Man fans. Into the Spider-Verse, the first one was just absolutely phenomenal, from the art style to the characters to the music. It was just fantastic. This one, animation is just as good, if not slightly better. I felt the first one had like a few more like subtle moments that just like were chef's kiss perfect, and this one was lacking in those same amount of moments. But it still had them nonetheless. I think the story and the plot are all super exciting and super interesting, and I can't wait for the next one. It's super fun to analyze and look at all the background things and connect, like, oh, there's that guy from this, and there's this Spider-Man from that video game or that show or that movie or things like that. It's fun to recognize those things, but they don't make that the focal point of the movie. There's still the plot in that. It's not just a cash grab of recognizability. The only thing really that brought this down and kept this from being a number 2 or number 1 spot was that there was a few unnecessary like political things in the background that didn't really need to be there. And the worst sin of all is what Andy Samberg did and butchered my favorite Spider-Man. He personally needs to apologize to me for that one, so I'll be waiting. Number 2, Godzilla minus one. Now, I've been debating whether this is the number one or the number two for a while leading up to this. But I feel that the number one just sits more deeply in my heart and my soul than this did. But I cannot hype up this movie enough. For a full review and everything and opinions, I will link the podcast that we did about it. It is definitely worth the watch. The movie and the podcast. But for everything, this is probably the scariest version of the standard Godzilla that I've seen in years. I mean, there's the Shin Godzilla, but that's a whole completely other thing. There's like various like anime Godzillas, which is something else. But like Godzilla, standard Godzilla, this one is absolutely terrifying in certain scenes. And they waste absolutely no time getting him on screen. He's probably on screen within the first like 6 minutes. Now, anyone who has ever seen a Godzilla movie before, you know, especially now in the current run of movies, you know that the worst part about them is the human characters, because absolutely nobody cares about the human characters or what they're doing, but they spend a whole lot of unnecessary time focusing on them, and you just don't care. They could get like eaten in the middle of a sentence and you were just like, well, bye. But this one completely turned that on its head by having, yes, human characters and a lot of human drama, but wait a minute, it's actually good. Yes, you care about every single character, even the side characters. Like, they're interesting, and you're just like, I hope nothing bad happens to that one. I hope he lives. Like, the characters aren't flat either. Like, they actually have like deeper, like emotional problems, and they're deeper. They're not just surface level characters that are just thrown onto the screen. Like, each one has complex history and background and characters happening at the same time, which that is something that I really hope that Hollywood picks up on and starts to do more like that. Yeah, but for having a budget of less than $15 million and having this thing outclass over and over again all the insane Hollywood nonsense that's been putting out lately, it is definitely worth the watch, and it is absolutely worth the buying. I am getting this as soon as it comes out on 4K. And now, before we get to our number one pick, a few honorable mentions. Isaac was not able to join me for the viewing of Sound of Freedom, even though it was free. So you can all go blame him for that, but that is a beautiful and disgusting and horrifying and inspiring movie all at the same time. And I absolutely love Jim Caviezel in pretty much everything that he's in. And this is no exception. And the fact that this is based off of a true thing that actually happened is just amazing. We also have Hypnotic, which I went to see with my brother Merrick. This is a super cool movie that messes with your head, messes with the scenery, messes with pretty much everything. And it is just really super cool. And please, if you're watching this movie, do not turn it off as soon as the credits roll, because there is an end credit scene that completely changes an aspect of the movie. My brother and I were the only ones left in the theater when the scene came on, and we feel bad for everyone who left because they don't know how the movie actually ends. And now, drum roll please, my number one pick of 2023, Nefarious. From the trailer alone, as soon as I saw it, I felt something pulling me towards it. There was something about the trailer that I just every once in a while I would just pull it up and watch it again and get goosebumps all over again. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be about. I didn't know what about it really caught my attention because from all looks and purposes it seemed like it was going to be your standard demon possession movie, but it was not. Everyone thinks demon possession and you think, "Oh, I know exactly what you think. You think of all the Hollywood horror movies of kids getting possessed, but it is nothing like that because the demon in this movie actually behaves like an actual biblical demon, and that is scarier than anything Hollywood can cook up." The actor Sean Patrick Flannery, the actor's portrayal of the demon and the man it's possessing is nothing else like I've ever seen before because as an audience member, I was there disgusted and hating this demon 1 second and then flipping over and being concerned and sad and worried for the inmate it was possessing. And the fact that it can flip through that back and forth and flip my emotions like that back and forth just left me glued to my seat. Like the movie ended and the roller coaster that this film was just left me. I realized as soon as it was over that I was gripping the armrests of the seat just like super hard, and I was just like, oh, I didn't even realize. I could sit here all day and list off all the things that I find just so interesting and notable about this film, but I really don't want to make this into a whole podcast episode. So, uh, to save you the brevity, I would just recommend this. Like I said, I've been toying with whether I would put Godzilla over this or not, but there's something about this movie, the message, everything that happens in it that just sits in my soul and my heart, and I can't explain it, but I'm drawn to this film. It left a mark on me more than anything else in this year. Yeah. All right. That should do it for my top 10 movies of 2023. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check back on this channel in the coming month because we're also doing my bottom 10 as well as Isaac's top and bottom 10. And be sure to check out me and Isaac's brand new letterboxed pages at Cinema Kellan and Regular Isaac to keep up with our thoughts on movies we see in theaters and here at home. Until next time, guys, that's a wrap. Roll credits.